this video called Adding and Simplifying Similar and Dissimilar Fractions, we'll learn on how to do fraction problems that requires the knowledge on finding the LCD or least common denominator and GCF or greatest common factor. The key was to solve big fraction problems into a simplest form. But before that, let us take a look first for these 6 important sounding terms. First, we have numerator. This is the number above the line in a fraction. For example, 2 in 2/3 and 3 in 3/4. Denominator. On the other hand, this is the number below the line in a fraction. For example, 3 in 2/3 and 4 in 3/4. Similar fraction. It is a set of fractions having common denominators. For example, 3/4, 1/4, and 2/4. Dissimilar fractions. On the other hand, fractions having different denominators. For example, 1/2, 4/5, 2/3, 3/6, and 4/8. Next, LCD or least common denominator. This is the lowest common multiple of the denominator of a set of fractions. For example, the LCD for fractions 5/12 and 7/15 is 60. GCF or greatest common factor. This is the greatest number that is a factor of 2 or more other numbers. For example, the GCF for 12 and 16 is 4. We already defined these keywords, so are you ready? Here's the first similar fraction problem. First, we have 10/4 plus 2/4. So, how you can solve it? Basically, we have to understand first the concepts in adding similar fractions. In adding similar fractions, we need to add the two numerators and copy the denominator. In this example, we have noticed that 10/4 plus 2/4 has a common denominator 4. This is what we call the similar fraction, fractions having similar denominator. To solve this, we have to add the numerator of the first fraction 10 by the numerator of the second fraction 2. 10 plus 2 is 12, then copy the denominator 4. Wait, is that our final answer? Well, in mathematics, the answer must be in a simplest form. The question is, how can we get the simplest form of 12/4? Basically, 12/4 means 12 divided by 4, and 12 divided by 4 is equals to 3. And that means that the simplest form of 12/4 is 3. But how do we arrive at this answer? Basically, since 12 can be divided into 4, we can now solve it. To solve this, we have to ask how many 4s does it take to make 12? Or you can think with us, how many 4s will fit into 12? It's easy to see that the answer is 3 because 3 times 4 is 12 for us to get the remainder of 0. So we can now say that the simplest form of 12/4 is 3. Did you get it? Well, let us take another similar fraction problem. Next, we have 7/15 plus 5/15. So, how you can solve it? Again, in adding similar fraction, we have to add first the numerator of the first fraction 7 by the numerator of the second fraction 5. 7 plus 5 is 12, and copy the denominator 15. Wait, is that our final answer? Well, not, because 12/15 can be simplified. But what is the simplest form of 12/15? The simplest form of 12/15 is simply 4/5 or 4/5. How? Firstly, you need to find the GCF of numerator 12 and denominator 15. But how do we find the GCF or greatest common factor of the numerator 12 and denominator 15? Simply get the factors of the numerator 12 and denominator 15. 12 has a factors of 12 and 1 because 12 times 1 is 12, 4 and 3 because 4 times 3 is 12. 6 and 2 because 6 times 2 is 12. 15 has a factors of 15 and 1 because 15 times 1 is 15. 5 and 3 because 5 times 3 is 15. Is there any factors of 12 and 15? Well, that's all the factors of 12 and 15. Now, can you figure out what is the GCF of 12 and 15? Yes, you're right. It's 3. Why? 1 is also a factor of 12 and 15. So why not 1 is the GCF? Well, let me explain. If you have noticed, there are two common factors of 12 and 15. These are 1 and 3. The GCF of 12 and 15 is 3, not 1. This is because 3 is greater than 1 in symbol and because we are looking for the greatest common factor. Did you get it? So we have now a GCF of 3. The next step is to divide both numerator 12 and denominator 15 by the GCF 3. So we have to follow the rules, which is to divide both numerator and denominator by our GCF. So 12 divided by our GCF 3, 12 divided by 3, the answer is 4. And we put it right on our numerator. The next step is the same as the first step. However, we have to divide the denominator 15 also by our GCF 3. 15 divided by 3, the answer is 5. And we put it right on our denominator. That means that the simplest form of 12 over 15 is simply 4 over 5 or 4/5. Well, bear in mind the fact that in adding similar fraction, we need to add first the two numerators and copy the denominators, then simply simplify. We already tackled adding similar fraction, and now we are going to tackle adding dissimilar fractions. But before that, let's take a look first for the meaning of these terms. What do you mean by dissimilar fractions? It is the set of fractions having different or not similar denominators. In addition, dissimilar fraction is opposed to similar fraction. Similar fractions have similar denominators. The examples are 1/4 and 3/4, 2/4 and 5 over 4, 4 over 4 and 6 over 4. While dissimilar fractions have different denominators. Examples are 1/2 and 4 over 3, 1/5 and 3/4, 5 over 6 and 9 over 7. In this video, we are going to add dissimilar fractions. First, we have 2 over 4 plus 2 over 8. So, how you can solve it? Remember, it is a dissimilar fraction and the denominators are different or not similar. To solve this, we have to get first the LCD or least common denominator of the denominator of the first fraction 4 and the denominator of the second fraction 8. But how can we get the LCD of 4 and 8? For this, we need a scratch paper. In getting the LCD, there are steps to follow. For us to get the LCD of these two denominators, we need to get first the multiples of 4 and 8. But the question is, how can we get the multiples of 4 and 8? The multiples of 4 are, let us start with 4, followed by 8, followed by 12, followed by 16, followed by 20, and so on. The multiples of 8 are, let us start with 8, followed by 16, followed by 24, followed by 32, and so on. Now, can you figure out what is the LCM or least common multiples of 4 and 8? I think you were curious about the LCD and LCM. LCD or lowest or least common denominator is the lowest common multiple of the denominator of several fractions, while LCM or least common multiple is the lowest quantity that is a multiple of two or more given quantities. Now, let us go back to our question. What is the LCD or LCM of 4 and 8? Yes, you're right. It's 8. Why? 16 is also of common multiples of 4 and 8. So, why 16 is not the LCD or LCM? Well, let me explain. If you have noticed, there are two common multiples of 4 and 8. These are 8 and 16. The LCD or LCM of 4 and 8 is 8 and not 16. This is because 8 is less than 16 in symbol, and this is because we are looking for the least or lowest common multiple. So we have now an LCD of 8 and we put it right on our denominator. The next step is to get its numerator. To solve this, we need to divide the LCD 8 by the denominator of the first fraction, which is 4, and multiply the answer by its numerator 2. Then write your answer right on the top of the denominator, which is 4. The next step is the same as the first step. However, we have to divide the LCD 8 by the denominator of the second fraction, which is 8, and multiply the answer by its numerator 2. Then, since we apply addition, you will write plus sign before writing your answer 2. And how we can do it? Simply add 4 and 2, which is equals to 6. Then, copy the denominator, which is 8. Wait, is that our final answer? Well, again, in mathematics, the answer must be in simplest form. The simplest form of 6 over 8 is simply 3/4 or 3 over 4. But how? For us to simplify fractions, you have to find the GCF or greatest common factor of the numerator and denominator. But how can we find the GCF of 6 and 8? Simply get the factors of the numerator 6 and denominator 8. 6 has a factors of 6 and 1 because 6 times 1 is 6. 2 and 3 because 2 times 3 is 6. 8 has a factors of 8 and 1 because 8 times 1 is 8. 2 and 4 because 2 times 4 is 8. Now, can you figure out what is the GCF or greatest common factor of 6 and 8? Yes, you're right. It's 2. Why? 1 is also a factor of 6 and 8. So why not 1 is the GCF? Well, let me explain. If you have noticed, there are two common factors of 6 and 8. These are 1 and 2. The GCF of 6 and 8 is 2, not 1. This is because 2 is greater than 1 in symbol, and this is because we are looking for the greatest common factor. So we have now a GCF 2. The next step is to divide both numerator 6 and denominator 8 by the GCF 2 for us to simplify 6 over 8. Numerator 6 divided by our GCF 2, the answer is 3. And we put it right on our numerator. The next step is the same as the first step. However, we have to divide the denominator 8 also by our GCF 2. The answer is 4, and we put it right on our denominator. That means that the simplest form of 6 over 8 and our final answer is 3/4 or 3 over 4. Easy, huh? Wow, that's a lot even I give few examples. However, you have learned many math concepts like specifically adding fractions, which involves getting the LCD and GCF, applying division and multiplication, and writing the final answer in the simplest form. So guys, good luck in solving your own math problems. I'll cheer you up. I just leave it here. Subscribe for more math videos. Thank you for watching. Bye.